Welcome to the All In Podcast, the show that explores how the top real estate entrepreneurs have gone all in on their businesses. I'm your host, David Morse, with my co-host, Joe Quattrucci, and I invite you to come along with us as we explore the stories of the most elite professionals in the game today to learn how they went all in and how you and I can do the same. So I just have to ask, are you all in? All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast, show number 29, Joe.
Excellent.
I'm your host, David Moore, CEO and team leader of Keller Williams, Arizona Realty in Scottsdale and North Phoenix, with my co-host, Joe Quattrucci, Director of Growth, the Chris and Cole Network. And today we have in studio with us a terrific designer and investor and flipper and everything else that we'll probably get into. Kara Beckmann, welcome to the show, Kara.
Thank you so much for having me.
Kara, start us off by giving our listeners kind of a high-level overview of exactly what it is that you do and how long you've been doing it.
Awesome. So I do a lot. I'm a real estate investor. I invest in my own fix and flip properties. I have rental properties, and I do design work for clients as well. So I basically do their remodels, everything from a full house remodel to kitchens and bathrooms. And it will be 3 years full time that I've been doing this in November.
Awesome.
And 4
Happy
years
anniversary.
all in all. Thank you.
Yeah. You were telling us just before we started recording kind of how you got into real estate. So bring us back to before you were in real estate and what your goal was then and how it kind of evolved into what it is today.
So my background is actually in patisserie and baking. So as far away from real estate as you probably could get.
What was the first word?
Patisserie.
Patisserie.
It's French
It's like
for
pastry.
pastry.
Sounds like pastry.
Yes.
Nailed
Put it in
Sounds a lot
context,
more-
David.
That is awesome.
So I went to school for basically to open up my own wedding cake shop. That was my dream in high school. And even going back, I had always learned how to save money. And that really helped me when it came to real estate investing. And even to this day, if you don't know how to manage your budgets, it's going to be a lot harder for you when you're doing fix and flips because budgets are such a key role in that. But so basically, I'm wanting to start this baking, open up a bakery, and I'm in the restaurant industry. And it was when the market started to crash back in 2008. And I would work at a restaurant for 2 years. It would close. I would work at another one for 2 years. It would close. And this was kind of a continual process. And I thought, this is not really what I want to do. And so I continued saving my money. 10 years later, I'm working in retail at a luxury women's retail boutique. And I thought, I love being creative. And that was just not a creative outlet for me. And so I don't know how the seed got planted to flip houses. That wasn't even really a term that I was familiar with. But I thought, what if I can essentially do to a house what I would do to a cake? So for me, it's a blank canvas. And my mom is a real estate agent. She was the only one I knew at the time. And so I would fall asleep looking on Zillow, and I would just send her house after house, and we would just put in lowball offers. At the time, I had no emotional ties to these houses. So if it got rejected, that was okay. It was just one less no that I would hear. And finally, someone accepted an offer, and it was $50,000 below ask. And basically, the house had incredible bones, and the cabinets were literally falling off the kitchen, falling off. And whoever lived in the house was in a wheelchair, but the hallway wasn't wide enough for the wheelchair. So there were all of these gouges in the drywall.
Oh, wow.
There were these rubber bumpers on the corners. And I just looked at this house with so much potential. And I don't remember ever being fearful. I was so excited.
Wow.
And so just dove right in. I interviewed 3 contractors, went with one that I don't remember if I just felt more comfortable with them or if they had the best price, probably a mix of the two. Hired them and basically did a full gut job. This is while I'm still working at my retail job. And that one sold really fast. I think that one sold 10 days and made a fantastic profit. But I was still a little too scared to take the leap. So I did another flip. That one was great. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to quit my day job now, I have 2 under my belt. I realized that I like the process, which I do think is important because it is a lot of work. So if you don't enjoy the process, it's going to be hard for you to see the success, because I think it's hard to find success if you don't enjoy the process.
100%. I mean, flipping is not a passive, it's not a passive strategy for investing, right? It's a full-time job. You're on job sites and you're managing. And, I think there are systems and tools that you can put in place to make it more passive, potentially, but especially if you're the one managing the project, you're in it.
Very hands-on.
So you're putting in offers and you said one gets accepted and you weren't fearful. You were just excited. That alone intrigues me, because I think that after submitting a bunch of offers, a lot of investors are like, oh no, what do I do now? Had you done something to that point to prepare for that day when you got a yes?
Not at all.
Really?
It's like, okay, great. It's go time. Now I have to figure it out. And that's how the whole journey has been. I'm one of those people where I dive out of the plane and I try to build the parachute as I go. And I think that is not the ideal model for everyone, but you have to know what your risk tolerance is. And for me, I'm willing to risk more. I'm willing to take a bigger risk, because that's where I think the bigger reward is in the end. And, when you go all in, you have to figure it out, and you're going to. So that's what I did. And
well, you burned the boat, so to speak. You give yourself no other option. You go all in, you acquire that first deal, and now I'm in it. Now I own it. Now I've got to figure this thing out.
Right.
So just to clarify, you do not have a real estate license. You have no formal real estate training prior to doing your first renovation. You're really an experienced-based person.
Correct.
That's incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
So walk us through the progression then. You did your first flip, you did your second flip. At what point did you know I'm ready to go all in and make that transition full time?
So for me, I had been working since I was 15 years old. So I was really nervous to quit that steady paycheck, which I think is the same for a lot of people. And so for me, I thought, okay, if I'm going to quit and do this full time, which I could see was the natural progression for me, I thought I have to get a rental property to at least start to get some steady cash flow. So I told everyone I knew I'm looking for a rental property, and I got one word of mouth, completely off market, because I was telling people what I was looking for. And to this day, I still have that rental property. And so I got that under my belt. I did remodel it. When I purchased it, it was a 3-bedroom. I converted it to a 4-bedroom because that particular property is right near ASU, which is, of course, Arizona State University. And for me, as a landlord, I can get more for a 4-bedroom house than I could for a 3-bedroom. So I did that conversion, and then I bought my next flip. So this flip was really pivotal because I hired all of the subcontractors to teach me how to do everything. So I'm still working my full-time job. I'm at my flip in the mornings and helping them with demo, helping them with wiring can lights, changing out receptacles. I installed and hand painted every single baseboard in that house. I could feel muscles that I've never even knew that I had before.
Right. It's wild.
Scraping all the popcorn ceilings, painting. There really wasn't a step in that project that I wasn't completely hands-on. And that project, so I'm paying them hourly, and I would have to go to work, and they were still charging me for being at the house when I wasn't there. And so this project took so long, and it definitely cost me more, but I look at it as a cost of education, really. And ultimately, that was the house where I ended up quitting my job so I could get this house finished.
Okay.
So I'm very thankful for that house.
I'm curious to talk about that a little bit, because I'm a guy that is a true believer in leverage. And if I could hire a team to just go over there and take care of it, and I don't even have to think about it, I think that's ideal. How imperative has it been in your personal development and in your ability today to do what you do, to have taken the time and put in the energy and the effort and the hard work and labor to experience that on that second flip?
Yeah. I mean, it was very valuable for me. And up to that point, that's exactly what I was doing. I was hiring a general contractor to go in and manage it and oversee it while I was at work, which was valuable for me at that time. But to take a deeper dive into real estate, I had to know that I wasn't getting the wool pulled over my eyes by contractors, because I didn't know if something should only take 3 days and it's taking them a week.
Right.
Also knowing the cost and really just the labor that goes into certain things. So it really came in handy in flips after that.
So I think you're hitting on something that if you are interested in flipping property, something that I think is really important, you need to not get taken advantage of, which I mean happens, right? Like we all hear about the car mechanic who charges $150 for an oil change that costs $20, right? You have to have some idea of what things are going to cost, and so that's very savvy of you to be hands-on like that. And I just have to like, do you remember when we were sitting in one of our flips at like 9:45 at night?
The electricity is off. It's pitch black. Yep. We've got our iPhones out.
We know the exact story.
It was. I'm sorry. Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. No. We're sanding the mud off the walls with our iPhone lights, and we just look at each other and we're like, what are we doing? And that was like this real like come to Jesus moment for us. And it's funny because that's part of the journey. Like you have to understand the time cost factor of flipping. All right. Back to your story though. So you're working on this project, and is this the one that you financed with hard money?
No. So actually, and I like to say, use your day job to fund your side hustle until you make your side hustle your full-time job. So because I was working a full-time job, I could qualify for mortgages, a traditional mortgage. So that's what I did for my first 4 deals. Was a traditional mortgage. And then after I quit my job, I started using hard money.
Okay, perfect. So walk us through what that first interaction with hard money looks like. Some people are probably listening to this and they don't even know what that means. Mm-hmm. What is hard money, and how have you leveraged hard money now in your business?
So I continue to leverage hard money. It depends on the deal, and it also depends on my end goal for that specific deal. But basically hard money, or for me, it's a commercial line of credit. And so you have tighter terms. Basically, I have to pay the loan back in full for me, it's 12 months, but it's different depending on your lender. And then your rate will be determined based on your credit score, based on your track record. So that can vary a lot. So when I first started this, I want to say I was paying an 11% interest. Now I'm down to 7.99%, which is great for commercial lines of credit. But again, that varies a lot. But the nice thing about having a commercial line or hard money, you don't have to have a W-2 income. So after quitting my job, I had to have Beckmann House for 2 years before I could qualify again for normal loans, an FHA loan.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, hard money is something that you can get access to it's basically a project-based loan, if I call it that. And these lenders will give you money up to a certain extent based on the worthiness of that particular project that you bring them. And those rates, 11%, you basically just have to factor it in. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of the calculation around a flip, I don't think, right now. But take us now into your subsequent projects and what Beckmann House has just developed into.
So it's definitely branched out more than I expected it to. When I started Beckmann House, I never intended to take on client projects. And now I've done 22 client projects within these past 3 years, a lot of full house remodels, kitchens and bathrooms, some additions, and that's been an awesome side of the business as well. I think it's great to have different sources of income coming in. So now I have my fix and flips, I have rental properties, and then I have the design business. So, going through Corona when the fix and flip model was a little bit slower and hard, it was just tighter to get in. It was great to have rental income coming in, and then I have design projects. So kind of use all of them to fund new projects. And go ahead. Yeah,
that's obviously a lot of, you have your hands in a lot of different pots, and that's, I totally agree with you. Having several streams of income is obviously a great way to build that security. Talk to us about the team that you have built around you. Do you have people that you directly employ, or even if you don't, talk to us a little bit about the team of people that you have around you so that you can do what you do successfully?
Yeah. So a lot of it is still just me. I have 2 part-time employees. One is my sister, and she went to design school. So she'll handle all of my CAD renderings for our client projects. And a CAD rendering is essentially what we give to the contractors to implement our designs for our clients. And then I have another part-time employee who does my 3D renderings for clients to really have a good picture of the end product. And then other than that, my mom is my real estate agent, and I have some go-to contractors. I have some go-to subcontractors to bring in, depending on the project. That's it.
Do you also have like a go-to, commercial lender, a go-to attorney, real estate advisor, things like that?
Yes. Yep. All of the above.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I still am using the same commercial lender that I did on day one.
It was obviously a good experience.
Yeah, it was great.
Wow, that's awesome.
Great. So yeah.
Fantastic. So talk to us about, I want to talk about horror stories. Okay. It's around Halloween, right? Like, all right. So bring us into, because every project you run into different things, right? Like I know we had a contractor skip town to Tennessee.
Literally left the state.
Couldn't believe it. Right. And you don't plan for those things.
Middle project.
You don't necessarily learn those things in the investing webinars that you sit in, right? So bring us through, like, do you have a particular project that you've ever worked that just turned into an utter disaster? And how did you process it? How did you stick with it and display persistence? And what was the outcome?
So I've had a few, but the worst one was the first project after quitting my job. So I'm in this full time. It was my first deal with hard money, which to me was nerve-wracking because it was more expensive than what I was paying before.
The clock's ticking.
The clock is ticking, absolutely. And on that loan, I think back then I had to pay it back in 8 months.
Okay.
So I thought, no problem. I'll definitely have this house done in 8 months. But it was also my first addition. So I'm using the contractor who I've used in the past and had a great relationship. And I told him from day one, I'm a little nervous on this house because of the hard money. He's like, no problem, no problem. So the first line on on basically his contract bid was pull permits. And somehow I texted him and said, I just want to be sure that we pulled permits for X, Y, and Z. And he said, well, let me get back to you. And then a few days go by. And I'm getting a little nervous here. And then the next text I have from him is, I'm sorry, we got shut down by the city because we didn't have certain permits.
Oh, no.
And I had never gotten shut down by the city, so I didn't realize no one could work on the job. So now we are, everyone's off the job site. And I also paid for architect fees for them to basically do this addition. And then I start getting text messages from the architect asking me, verifying certain square footage for the house. And I said to him, wouldn't you already have this if you pulled the permits? And then it started to get really fishy. The contractor didn't want to meet with me anymore. I don't even remember how long this went by where we're just completely shut down. Finally, we meet. Oh, and he tries to charge me $15,000 with change orders because of everything the city came in and had to fix because it wasn't done up to code.
Oh, man.
His mistakes onto you.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, that hard money clock is continuing to tick.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, we finally get to meet at the house. And I said, I am happy to pay for everything that the city would have added on regardless of the permits we pulled, such as hardwiring for smoke detectors and the things that, they always add on. So in the addition, we already poured fresh concrete. We already added 2 footings. We already had framing, electrical, plumbing. Now we had to re-pour the concrete, redo framing, electrical, plumbing. So that's where the big chunk of the change orders were coming in. Now, this goes back to the last house that I did where I was very hands-on. So on this house, I was there a lot because that was my full-time job and I'm taking videos. So one of the change orders, he was charging me for 3 footings and I knew we only had the 2 footings. Now, this is relatively a small item compared, considering it was a $15,000 change order, but he's telling me, no, we had 3 footings. And I said, no, we definitely only have 2 footings. And I had pictures. And so that's one of those things where you should always take pictures before drywall goes up. So you know what's behind the walls. So you know what's under your foundation, because that's something that I definitely wouldn't have known if we had 2 or 3 footings.
Right.
But anyways, so we somehow negotiated through those change orders, got the house wrapped up, and it's on the market. It goes under contract to someone who's going to potentially buy it for a rental. For whatever reason, I was at the house and I walked into the house where the inspector is telling the potential home buyer that, we turned off all of the water and the timer was still going. So there could possibly be a subterranean leak, and you're going to have to rip up all of this brand new flooring. And I'm thinking, why would you say that? You don't know that that's the problem. You are free. I just saw the potential home buyer's eyes.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Deer in headlights.
I'm out of here.
Yeah. And so he did cancel the contract because of course that freaked him out.
Sure.
And it turned out it was a landscaping leak. It was a little landscaping valve.
Sprinkler line.
Yep, a little sprinkler line. So when you turn off the water, that was still going. It was a little sprinkler line. So now it's back on the market. I'm getting notices from the hard money lender saying, if you don't pay this in full, you have this huge fee. Anyway, so it's on the market for another month. Finally, it goes under contract and it's sold. And the whole time, I'm just telling myself they can't all be this challenging. So if I can just get through this one, the next one's going to be so easy.
This whole conversation just brings my brain to making sure you're following a system. And what I mean by that is, are you getting a contract signed by your contractor with very specific details outlined in it that was hopefully prepared by a real estate advisor? Are you giving your contractor a very detailed scope of work with exactly what to do, quantities and amounts, and just the system around making sure that you can cover your bases and track the progression of the project, so that if there are issues like when they came up, that you can say, well, contractor, actually we have this contract and here's the scope of work and here's the proof and here's the pictures. So would you say that hardship or challenge early in your career has made it, it must have made it a lot easier moving forward because you understand the importance of following the checklist and making sure that you're covering your bases?
Oh, yeah. There were definitely key takeaways on that particular flip that I still carry with me today as far as permits. And now, it's little things where you don't know what you don't know, right? So now I know to go on cities' websites and making sure that permits are pulled when they said that they're being pulled. That would have helped from day one. So
that's a great example of a takeaway, of a lesson learned of, okay, I'm going to add that to my checklist. So every time now I'm checking for permits.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me about the mindset around this, though. You encounter all these challenges and it's your first one full time. You've had a W-2 job for a really long time. Why did you not give up? Because I think a lot of people give up.
I think your mindset is such a key part in being successful. And looking back, again, failing was never an option for me. So to look at that particular deal as a hardship just didn't make sense to me. I knew that it would be over. I knew that eventually this is going to sell, and I knew that I'm learning things as I go. And that was just part of the journey. I can't expect to start a full remodel with an addition, and know everything. Mm-hmm. And so that was just part of the process for me.
Yeah. Did you still make money on the deal?
I did. Yeah. I even remember telling myself, I will be so happy if I make like $10 on it. And it's actually pretty profitable. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was just truly icing on the cake.
That's fantastic. All right. So obviously I met you through social media, and I want to talk a little bit quickly about the role of social media and how that has affected the growth of your business. Can you just walk us through that? Because you do a lot on Instagram, right? And I think a lot of business owners would like to break into that world. What's your progression and journey through social media look like? Yeah,
so I started the Beckmann House Instagram page really just for myself to house all of my before and after pictures. And it really started to grow on the property where I was doing a lot of the work. And so I'm showing myself doing demo and painting, whatever I was doing in that house. And I think the most important thing is to be active. People want to see what you're doing. They want to have a behind the scenes feel of what's going on in a remodel. And I try to show it all, our whole progress through construction and deliveries, the exciting stuff, the not so exciting stuff, and also a lot of mindset. A lot of different things as far as your mindset goes and being entrepreneurial and the trial and errors and all of that. But it really started to grow when bigger accounts would share my pictures. And that's when I would start to see an influx in followers. And one person would share it. And, social media really is, it's kind of like that. Once you start following people and they follow you and sharing stuff, I mean, that's when I started to see mine grow.
Were you initiating those interactions or were they just happening organically?
No, they were happening organically. So I use a lot of hashtags. So I think hashtags are important. So that's how they were finding my pictures.
Right.
And if they liked it, they would repost it in their stories, or I don't even know if we had stories back then.
We sound so old. But there is a compounding effect, right?
Absolutely.
And it only takes one or two of those things to really compound and have an exponential effect. And I think that, Joe, you actually just said this in the class that we were sitting in just prior to coming in with Kara.
It must have been really smart.
It was so smart, man. Oh, I took notes. You said something like, social media should not take the place of your prospecting activity, but it should be something that you use to amplify the message. And you said it much more eloquently than that. But I think some people want to put social media front and center without the prospecting element of it.
Right.
And I think that's a mistake. However, if you use it, if you use it as a supplement or as a prospecting method, I think it can be hugely powerful, as it has been in your business and obviously another business. Yeah,
totally agree. And just to elaborate a little bit on that, I think a lot of people use social media as an easy way out to avoid that face-to-face or over the phone interaction with people and that human connection. And it's easy to go on social media and create posts. And in your case, Gary, you've been able to document your progress. And I totally agree with you. I think people really love to see progressions and before and after photos. And especially when you're the one doing the work. I think that's a really clever touch to it. And so just what you're saying, David, you've got to use it to amplify your business, not be the foundation of your business.
Yeah. So what is your favorite part of just the business that you've created? Is it demo day? Is it CAD design? Like what's your favorite part?
It's so tough because I really love the whole process of it all. I love the acquisition part of it when it's my own investments. I love analyzing the deals. But I also love, when you walk into a house, there's so many different directions on where the design can go. And that's so exciting for me. So kind of figuring out, what does this house feel like to me? Where should I take this? I think that's really exciting. Of course, it's exciting once we get the tile installed and cabinets start going in, all of the finishing touches I love. But yeah, I like when I sell houses too. So really the whole process, I don't know.
Fulfilling.
The whole thing is so fulfilling for me. And I'm just so thankful that I get to do this every day.
Something interesting that you just said that I want to pick up on. What does this house feel like?
Yeah.
And just elaborate on that a little bit.
Oh, I could never do a design before I have a house. So a house it feels different to me. So I have to really walk through the house and does it feel modern? Does it feel Spanish? Does it feel farmhouse, which I don't really do a lot of anymore, but they all feel so different. And so my remodels, I would say they do have a similar feeling, but they're all very different. They're unique from each other. And I never want all of my fix and flips to feel the same. I like that they each have character. And on most of the houses that I do, I try to keep some of the original character, even if it is a more modern design. We're keeping something in the house that's original.
Yeah.
Talk to me about highlights of your career. Like, what would you say is the highlight of your career since creating Beckmann House?
Other than the All-In podcast.
Other than that, let's see, that's a tough one.
Now you stumped her.
Well, I definitely have a few. Probably, I just am closing on my 15th property. So that's kind of a milestone for me. And I'm really excited. I'm doing my first small development deal. So that's going to be a really big milestone for me. So
what kind of development?
So it's currently a duplex, but I have tenants in place. So it's cash flowing day one. And the original plan, I closed on this right before COVID. So I wanted to start this right away. And then once COVID happened, I thought I want to kind of see what happens to the market. No one knew. And I just kept the tenants in place. They already renewed their contracts. And I just did actually kind of the BRRRR strategy. I just pulled quite a bit out of that property already, and that's going to fund the architects and the permits and the plans to really develop that. But it's zoned for 7 2-story units. So that will be my first small apartment complex.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. You just use the term BRRRR strategy. I know we've mentioned it before on the podcast, but for anyone who doesn't know what that is, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat, right? So you're recycling, rinsing, whatever you want to say, the funds from a deal once you put a renter in place and have renovated it so that you can go and repeat the process again. And it's powerful. It's something that I think has gained popularity with shows like Bigger Pockets, which you were on, which must be a pretty cool milestone as well. They haven't called us yet.
Oh, we're waiting for the call, David.
Okay.
It'll come soon.
Okay. All right. Brandon, we're waiting on you. So I think it's a powerful strategy, and it's one that I think makes investing even more obtainable on a scalable basis. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we cut you off. What other highlights?
Well, since we're talking about the BRRRR strategy, so actually that was a very successful deal. So I got another rental property, completely word of mouth. It was when I was looking for a rental property again. So tell everyone you know what you're looking for. And because if you're constantly telling them, if they hear a deal, they're going to think of you and hopefully bring it to you.
Definitely. We were just talking about that on
real estate sales strategy 101 right there.
There you go.
Put your goal, verbalize your goals.
Yes.
Verbalize your goals. People desire to help you.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Love that.
So I have basically got this property off market, paid cash for it, went in, completely renovated it. And then I did the BRRRR strategy. And because of that, I was able to buy my next rental property, all because of the first property. So, I mean, the BRRRR strategy is it's so great in the sense where you can essentially buy one house or one deal and multiply it and continue to have that success, all because of one deal.
That truly is the beauty, in my opinion, of real estate and what we do, right? Is that domino effect of the first one may seem challenging, your experience is low, your resources are minimal, and if you can get over that hump, the second, the third one, it just becomes easier, not only because of your experience, but now you have more assets to work with. You have more resources to tap into, and now you can build faster and further. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it is a really strong, I think it's great.
So on that note, what is next for you? Where do you see your company going in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road?
So to definitely continue with the Beckmann home, which is my client aspect of Beckmann House, and continue to grow that because that is very strong for us. And for me, it's so fun because when I'm working with clients, they have different tastes, they have different budgets. So I can do really fun things that wouldn't necessarily work for me for a fix and flip. So I love having that part of my business. I'm really excited to start this small development deal because that could lead into bigger developments, which I would love to, well, we'll see how this goes, but if I like it, I would love to do bigger developments.
Very cool.
That's fantastic. All right. What is the hardest part right now? I'm a brand new investor. I have, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 sitting on the sidelines. I want to put it into a flip because I've been inspired by someone like you. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge given the market that we're in right now of flipping a property?
Quite frankly, I think the biggest challenge right now is just getting a deal. Mm-hmm. So if you can get a deal right now, you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So I think that goes back to being persistent, being decisive. So I'm one who I say no to a lot of deals. I like to stick in a very small neighborhood, really, where I know those numbers. I can analyze them really quickly so I can spot a good deal. If someone comes to me with a deal from another city where I'm not as familiar with, more than likely I'm going to say no. It could be a fantastic deal, but I don't know those numbers. And I don't know the buyer. Right now I know my end buyer. So that just makes a lot of sense to me. But if you're starting out, I would probably recommend sticking to neighborhoods that you know, that you're familiar with, and just put out deals. So many people don't even get those deals or don't even get the offers out. So just put out offers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that actually at the very beginning of the podcast, that you just put out offers and you just didn't care what the result was. And you're kind of unemotionally attached to the outcome. And even if it's a lowball offer, you calculate numbers based on the pro forma and what you can acquire it for, because you either make or lose money typically on the acquisition, not the sale.
Exactly.
And then if you get 100 no's before you get a yes, that's fine. You've just got to be willing to do the work to put out 100 deals.
Yeah.
So other than the MLS and word of mouth, are there any other lead generation or acquisition strategies that you're using? Or is it primarily the MLS? And
I still use the MLS. That's actually how I found my duplex deal. The house that I just got under contract was on the MLS.
Wow.
But I also use wholesalers. So I have wholesalers that email me, and they even know my neighborhoods, the certain zip codes that I stick with. And so they'll only email me deals within those zip codes. So there's a lot of wholesalers out there. I've noticed their margins are even getting slimmer just because of the market that we're in. Mm-hmm. But again, once you get something under contract, if it's a good deal, you can find someone to help you finance that. So if you aren't wanting to do, if you can't do a traditional loan, if you can't get hard money for whatever reason, you could always partner with someone.
Yeah,
it's such a valuable takeaway. And we talk about that all the time. If you have a good enough deal, the money will be, there's so much available money out there. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know anybody, give David and I a call. We'll connect you with the right people that have, because you're absolutely right. There's people that have this extra money sitting around, or even equity in their home that they could be tapping into to leverage. And if you have a smoking hot deal and they can earn an upside and so can you, then everybody wins.
Right. So here's a funny story. My wholesaler called me. I was just finishing a flip from that same wholesaler and I'm working on a rental property. So my cash is gone. And he calls me and he said, Kara, I have this great deal in your zip code it's a wholesale deal. And I said, that's awesome, but I can't fund this right now. And he said, no, this meets all of your criteria. You have to check it out. So he said, usually when I go to his deals, it's whichever investor calls the deal, whoever says they want it, they get the deal. So if another investor walks in, you call it first, you get the deal. And that's how I've always done it. Well, he said this one, there's going to be more investors. So I thought, okay, I'll just go and check it out. Really not intending to purchase it because I don't have the money to purchase this deal. And so I go and there's cars lined up the block. I can't even take a video in the house. There are people everywhere. Wow. And so I'm walking this property and I'm like, yeah, this is actually really good. It's the house with the green kitchen that you posted today.
It's a beautiful home.
So I'm walking this house and I'm thinking, yeah, this is really good, but I have no idea how I'm going to finance this. So I remember standing on the driveway and I said, yeah, I'm out. He's like, what do you mean you're out? And I said, well, I can't fund this deal. And this guy walks out of the house and he's like, I'm in. And my wholesaler and I look at him and I said to my wholesaler, if he's in, I'm in. And that's my competitive nature. So I said, but how does this work if he wants it too? And he said, oh, there's 15 other investors that want this. So we're going to draw cards. So we are on the street. Basically, someone has this deck of cards and we're literally drawing cards. And how a wholesale deal works, you have to, if you get the deal or if you say you want the deal, you have to put down, now it's different for every company, but this company, you need $10,000 non-refundable. So if you change your mind, the next day you're out $10,000, which is a lot of money. Yeah. So we're drawing cards and everyone's flipping their cards over on this contractor's truck bed. And I am scared to death to turn over my card.
This is like a game of Russian roulette or something.
The anticipation.
Awesome. So everyone's throwing their cards down and it was like a 6, a 2, an 8. And I turned my card over and it was the Queen of Hearts.
Wow.
And I looked at my contractor and I don't even know if I could say what I said on air. And he's like, you got it. I am like, I just felt completely flush. And luckily I had $10,100 in my bank. Now, mind you, I'm still remodeling a flip and doing a rental property. So I'm driving to the bank to give him my last $10,000, not knowing how because you have to pay for this cash, basically. Mm-hmm. It was a 7-day close and 10-day close and it was over Christmas. So we're losing days because of the holidays.
Oh, wow.
The stress was high. And so now I have $100 left in my bank account. And I start calling people who have said, oh, if you ever need an investor. So I'm like, okay, who's really up for it, right? So a few people did say, no, we can't fund it for whatever reason. And then finally someone said, yeah, I can help you with it. So basically we did a 50-50 split. So I brought the deal to the table. I did the full design and they funded, the acquisition. And then they paid me back the $10,000, which was great because then I could finish my other projects that I had going on. So that was crazy. But it just goes to show if you take the risk and if the deal makes sense, you really can find the money.
I so agree with you. And the other thing that you kind of, are displaying in that story is 50% of a deal is better than 0% of no deal.
Right.
Right. And so I think a lot of people are scared of partnerships. And I always say put it on paper and let the paper be the guiding document and go make it happen. I would rather have 5% of a deal than 0% of no deal. Know your parameters, know what you want for an ROI or whatever, and make it happen. The other thing that you said it reminded me of someone we've had on the podcast before, mindset, expert Rock Thomas. And he has this saying, he says, say yes and figure it out later. And that's what you did. You're just flip the Queen of Hearts. I have 0 in my bank now. Well, I'm going to figure it out. And that's what we do because we're humans. We're adaptable and we have such a stronger mindset than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. And I love that you displayed that. One other thing, because you packed so much good content, everyone needs to listen to the last 5 minutes. You stick in your core competency. And that made me think of another investor you probably know, Zach Keeps. Zach is a big investor here in the area, and he talks to us about, he has single family homes. He's amassed a huge portfolio of single family homes. And we asked him, why haven't you scaled that to something bigger? And he said, my core competency is single family homes, and I stick in my core competency. You, Kara, have done that same thing from a geographic perspective. Zip codes. Your wholesale partners know where and what you like, and you stick there and you say no and pass on other deals. And I think probably what that does is it keeps you first in mind for that tight area. You own that. You are the investor that they're going to bring those deals to for those areas. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think it's so much good stuff in the last 5 minutes. Wow. 3, 2, 1. Is that what you're getting at?
Action.
Joe's giving me these hand signals.
I love it. Well, I love the trend that I'm picking up on is, just to David's point, is that you're not afraid to take action. And a lot of people listening to this podcast, you've got to get to that point in your life and in your mindset where you're willing to take the leap of faith and you're willing to take the action and learn along the way. And that's exactly what you've done. And you've had enormous success because of it. And it's not been due to a lack of fear or a lack of stress. It's just been that you've been able to get over it and now you're reaping the rewards.
Right. Yeah. There's such a fine line between analyzing a deal and analysis paralysis. So you can't get too caught up in analyzing or when should I start my first flip, because that flip could pass you by and you're still analyzing it. And so you have to be able to basically pull the trigger if it's a good deal.
Definitely.
You have to be decisive. You have to take a leap.
Well, what I want to do is I want to transition our show into the last segment, which we call 3, 2, 1 action.
Okay.
It's the same 3 questions we ask every guest. You ready? You're on the hot seat.
I'm ready.
All right.
Let's do
awesome.
this.
Joe,
all right, Kara, who is the one most influential person on your business and why?
That's a tough one because I have such a small team. So, I would probably say my mom, because she's helping me really find these deals and list my deals it's hard because I feel like I play so many roles also. So yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'd say my mom.
Awesome. That's a great answer. She's your mom and she's a real estate agent.
Mom,
that's a perfect answer.
I hope you listen to this. All right. Question number 2. What is the most influential book on your business?
Oh, I've read a lot of really good books. I'd probably would say The One Thing.
Okay.
And that helps you kind of hone in on what is your one thing and to not be so scatterbrained, and helps you to figure out what is the main purpose, highest and best use of your time that you should be focusing on. I think it's by Gary Keller.
Yeah, we're big fans of that book.
We've heard of it.
Brokerage.
That's a great answer.
And it is because, multitasking is a lie. And so many of us, we get paralyzed by trying to do so many things. And what is the one most important thing that you can do such that by doing it, will make everything else easier or unnecessary? That is the question of that book.
And on that very note, we lead into the third and final question for you, Kara. And this is the All-In Podcast, where we encourage and we challenge our listeners to go out there and take immediate massive action. So what advice do you give to the listeners here today to go do right now today? What's the first step they can take to start moving the needle in their business, moving their business forward?
In real estate or
in real
estate, I would say learn how to manage your money. I think that is so important and something that could possibly be overlooked, especially if you go in with the mindset of, oh, I'll just bring in a partner to fund this. You're still managing their money. And I think that is so important. Learn how to save, learn how to live below your means. I think those are small things that are just very undervalued. And I would say in any business, learn how to take the risk. Yeah.
And play all in.
Yeah. But also to enjoy the moment. Like, whether it's real estate or any business, like this is your life. Enjoy it. So I think sometimes we get so business focused and so serious that we need to still have fun and enjoy what we're doing. Take a step back and look at how far you've come. Like even those first few steps, you'll look back and realize how big of steps those were. And I think that's just really cool. So try to enjoy the process.
Well, you clearly exude joy and love exactly what you're doing. I mean, that was evident in every story you told us, and you've created an amazing business. And I know our listeners have gained so much value. If they want to find out more about you, Kara, where can they find your content?
Really, Instagram is the best way. And it's Beckmann House on Instagram.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for spending time with us and investing in our audience. And guys, thank you for listening to another episode of the All-In Podcast. As always, go play all in.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All-In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play all in.